Today we are going to talk about finding the surface area of triangular prisms. As we know, the surface area of a 3D figure is the sum of all faces combined. Okay, so for a triangular prism, we have a total of 5 faces. So we need to find the area of each of those faces and then add it all up to find our total surface area. So we have a couple examples here. Here is your first 3D figure. As we can see, it's a triangular prism. Today we will only be working with triangular prisms, but moving forward, you will need to make sure you know which figure you're working with before moving further. So we knew this is a triangular prism, because there are 2 bases that are triangular. This green one here, and then one in the back. And then the 3 lateral faces are rectangular. So this triangular prism is laying on its side, but it is still a triangular prism. So the first step that we need to do is unfold it, flatten it out, make it a blueprint, turn it into that net, which we see here. We start with that bottom, it unfolds side, side, and back and front. Once we have drawn our net, we want to make sure that we know that triangular prisms have a total of 5 faces. Therefore, we should have 5 faces in our net. We now label the dimensions. It's super important that we are very careful when we label the dimensions of triangular prisms. One thing to note is where that right angle is. Because we are finding the area of all faces, and we have 2 triangles in triangular prisms, we need to note where the right angle is so we can have that base and height accurately for our area of those 2 bases. So in this case, we've got our right triangle. Okay, so our right triangle, therefore, this is the base of your triangle and this is the height of your triangle. We can move on as long as we've labeled correctly. Okay, so step 2 is to label our dimensions. Now I go ahead and list. I've got my bottom, my front, my back, and my 2 sides color coded here for you. And now I just simply find the area of each of those. So my bottom, this dimension is 12. This one is 8. So 12 times 8 is 96. I move on to my triangle. My back and my front are triangular figures. Therefore, I need to use my triangle formula to find the area. So 1/2 times base times height. You've got to make sure you're doing that. Okay, so we've got a base of 12 and a height of 5. We know that this number right here is across from that right angle, so we don't use it to find the area of our triangle. Okay, so 1/2 of 12 times 5 is 30. We've got 2 of those. Then we've got our left side, 13 times 8, and our right side, which is 8 times 5. So then we go ahead and write our surface area formula, essentially, which is area of the bottom plus area of the front, area of the back plus area of the side, area of another side. I go ahead and substitute in my areas for each of those, add them up, getting me a surface area of 300 centimeters squared. Okay, so this right here, this number tells me the area of all of these faces combined. So the first step was to draw our net. The second was to label our dimensions. Third is to find the area. And step 4 is to go ahead and find that sum. Let's do one more together. Before we do that, I want to go ahead and bring your attention to those differences in our triangles. This was a right triangle, so we had that base and that height. This triangle is not a right triangle. Therefore, we had to draw that height in, and this is your height of your triangle. So that might not necessarily be labeled as one of these edges of your triangle, but it is a critical part to finding the area of those triangles and finding that overall surface area. So let's go ahead and label our sides here. We've got this right here is 16, and then across from that is also 16. Our height, our distance between each of those bases is 9 all the way across. This is, we've got an isosceles triangle here. So that would make this 10, this 10, this 10, this 10, and all down here 10 as well. But I do want to make sure that I add in that height for my triangle. All right. So I've got my bottom right here. So for my bottom, my dimensions are 9 times 16. Okay, so I go ahead and multiply that, which will get me 144. I've got my left side, which has dimensions of 9 times 10, getting me 90. My right side is also, like I said, it's an isosceles triangle. So those two sides are actually going to be the same, those two faces, getting me 90 again. And then I've got my front and my back. So my front, those are triangles. So I need to use my triangle formula. A equals 1/2 base times height to find that area. So I write 1/2 times my base, which is 16, times my height, which is 6. Remember, our height must meet our base in a triangle at a 90-degree angle from the opposite angle. All right, so I multiply 1/2 times 16 times 6, which gets me 48. That is the same for my back of my figure. 1/2, 16 times 6 equals 48. All right, next up, we find our surface area by adding together our bottom, our left, our right, our front, and our back. I take those dimensions, 144 plus 90 plus 90 plus 48 plus 48. Again, I add those all up. 144 plus 90 plus 90 plus plus 48 plus 48 gets me a surface area of 420 meters squared. So again, I drew my net, labeled my dimensions, found the area of each, and went ahead to add them all up, getting me my surface area.